Only a few people have seen self storage from as many angles as Travis Morrow. Operator, co op founder, publisher, event host, and one of the industry's most connected voices. He's the chairman and CEO of Store Local and president of National Self Storage, running a 29 store portfolio while still calling himself an operator first. We get into where consolidation is taking the industry, how the independent operator still wins, the endless hunt for true lead attribution, and why AI is a multiplier and not a magic wand. He also opens up about the mentors who shaped him and the story behind bringing MSM back. Travis, I feel like this has been a long time coming. We've known each other for several years now. I'd say you're one of the first operators to like talk to us whenever we got into the industry and kind of hear out what the heck Swivl was at the time, what we were doing, and give us a chance really. And so I've been looking forward to this episode and being able to sit down with you and record something. Finally got something in the books.
Right.
So really excited to have you. So thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me, and I'm excited to be here too. I was thinking about it as we were getting ready to hit record, and I remember Rodolfo, I met you first, and then Mason, I met you at one of our first Idaho events that Store Local did.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
And, that was really cool. You guys have been ahead of the curve by a long stretch when it comes to AI in the self-storage industry. And so, I've always do my best to kind of stay up on what's new and what's coming around the corner. And so, the tool that you guys built with Swivl, like I said, way ahead of the curve. And it's something that we've used at Store Local Storage for many years now. And congrats to you guys for, you know, living ahead of the game, so to speak.
No, we appreciate it. We've always appreciated y'all's support and like excited to have the conversation, Travis. There's a lot of mutual respect as we've gotten to know each other over the years. We could probably talk. Rodolfo said this is like a 45-minute thing. Me and Travis could talk for about 45 minutes to an hour just around national parks and like
baseball.
How we, yeah,
Yep.
in baseball, exactly. So like, we'll try not to take us off the beaten path too far.
Well, we'll still talk a little baseball.
Hey, the Braves are back.
I'll allow just this once.
Yeah.
Well, just to start off, I always like to kind of give our guests a little bit of a time to introduce themselves, just in case somebody else that's listening doesn't know you, Travis. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like from what I know of you, man, like you over the years, I've seen you, and even prior to me meeting you, you've worn so many hats. I think maybe like more than I can think of anyone else in the industry. You're operator, co-op founder, publisher, podcast host. I mean, owning MSM. So I'm just kind of curious. Like, silly question, but did you plan any of this, or did one thing just lead to the next? Like,
No, I certainly did not plan any of it, and I don't know why I do it to myself. I keep signing up for these new tasks, and it is a lot of fun. And I've learned a lot from all sides of the industry as I put on these different hats. And so I started in the self storage industry 20 plus years ago, I'll say, doing feasibility studies for national self storage. And that's kind of where I learned the industry. And that started off actually as an internship. Like I got a half a semester of credit doing that internship for national self storage. Then that kind of transitioned to doing that full time for the company. And then kind of the Great Recession came and we cut way back on home office staff and closed down the office. And we actually started working remote in 2009. And I worked
way ahead.
way ahead. There were no COVID excuse there. That was just, we don't need an office. We can do this from home. And so I've been working remote ever since then. 2013, 14, Store Local came about, the idea of independent operators working together to pool their resources to kind of allow them to better compete with the gigantic resources of the REITs really appealed to me from that kind of David versus Goliath aspect. And so Store Local really resonated with me. Been actively involved in state associations. Was president of Arizona, president of Nevada. Then I got active in the National Association. I was on the SSA board of directors for 6 years, founded the YLG for the SSA. And then in 2019 became CEO of of Store Local under Tenant. And then we acquired MSM, and that put me in the publishing space. And then the publishing space kind of naturally takes me back to the event space. And so, it's lots of hats, but they all kind of tie back to me being a self-storage operator. And I say it all the time that I am still a self-storage operator first, regardless of any of the other hats that I wear. There is a bit of a selfish aspect to it that some of these things that I do benefit my store. And that ultimately is what it comes down to. And I run a 29 store portfolio. Some of it we own, some of it we developed, some of it we manage for other people. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to, are my stores performing? How can I make my stores perform better and rent more units?
And real quick on that end, because I'm also involved in a YLG, a Young Leaders Group. Anyone under 40 who's listening, check it out. We'll put some notes
absolutely
on the
join.
Yep, absolutely join. I'm kind of curious to make the quick comparison there, because I was I like to prep before my shows, and I think I read somewhere where it was an internship, but you had a mentor in your life that kind of I think got you involved. You correct me if I'm wrong, and I feel like there's potentially some similarities there. I've heard you at kind of like roundtables. There's last year I think YLG did a alumni thing where you were speaking.
I'm now old enough to do the fireside.
Sorry about that.
The YLG.
But can you speak about that, like mentorship and kind of what led you to
absolutely.
doing this?
So I've been very fortunate to learn the industry from Bob Schaff, and he's the owner of National Self Storage, and he actually got into the industry in 1974 with his brother. And so Bob has been very active in the industry as a whole, going back to he attended the very first SSA meeting 50 years ago. And so he has kind of taught me to look at the industry and look out for the industry everywhere that we can, whether that be participating in the state associations like Arizona, for example. We were one of the first states to change our lien laws and work with the SSA to kind of develop that model statute, if you will, to then rubber stamp that across the rest of the country for the lien laws that the other states have got adopted. All that designed to kind of benefit the industry as a whole. He's, been the chairman of the SSA, he's in the SSA Hall of Fame, and that all kind of taught me to not just look at how are my facilities doing, but how is the industry doing? What's next on the horizon for the industry? What concerns, what threats may be out there to the industry, and how can we be proactive in addressing those while still, ultimately it comes back to our stores, like I said before, making our stores perform at the highest level. So I'm very fortunate to have been able to learn under Bob from that standpoint.
I love that. I'm gonna double click on the YLG stuff, since that's where we kind of started. It's really, I feel like we could have like 4 episodes, and each episode be 45 minutes on each chapter of your, or each hat that you wear. But kind of my question around,
I love talking stories. We can do this all day.
Exactly. And I know there's a lot of knowledge in your head. I've always enjoyed getting a chance to pick your brain and learn through osmosis from you as well. Like, I'm curious, like, for that 25-year-old that's coming in the industry, right now, like, what advice would you give that person? What would you tell them to go do? What would you tell them to focus on? I feel like there's a lot of change happening in the industry right now.
Well, that kind of goes back to why we started the Young Leaders Group at the beginning. And that was, in working with Bob, I got to hear all of the stories of these guys who had first started the industry together and had been working together since 1974, the 80s, the 90s, etc. And they had some wild stories, but they were the, first generation of our industry. And they had a lot of fun together, but they all knew each other. They could pick up the phone, they would answer each other's text messages or phone calls or emails. And these are some of the largest operators, in the industry, going all the way to the founders of the REITs and all of that. They had this history together that I could see, as those guys started to get older, that we needed as an industry to be able to continue the next generation of self storage operators, vendors, everyone in the industry to be able to have that kind of relationship moving forward. And that's really what started the idea of the Young Leaders Group in the self storage industry was one, get vendors to pay for our drinks. Two, start those relationships.
Find the guy with
And
a
with
nice suit on
Right.
first.
With those people in the industry that are going to be in the industry with you for a long time. Just like, that's how our relationship started. And that's, we're
Totally.
on this podcast together because we know each other. We've known each other for years in the industry. And the thing that I would tell people that are, 25 just coming into the industry, it's something that I say all the time, but I very much believe it. No one goes to business school and graduates and say, I can't wait to get into the self-storage industry. But everybody that finds their way to the self-storage industry stays in the self-storage industry because it's a freaking awesome business. And
Yeah.
the people in the industry are great. So you join the YLG today because you're going to meet the people that you are going to be working with throughout the rest of your career. And that's what we designed it for. And I'm very pleased, I love Rodolfo that you're a senator on the YLG. There's a whole story of why we're a Senate and not a board, but my wife and I still call each other senator to this day because we were both
Nice.
on the Senate of the YLG. But it's something that, the industry was going to need moving forward to continue the legacy that was created by Bob Schaff and everybody else, Ken Woolley and all of these people, the names of the industry that are all in the Hall of Fame today.
Rodolfo has yet to formalize me calling him senator, but I expect that to happen after this podcast.
Well, we can start. I was like, I'll make it a thing tomorrow. Everyone in the company.
But it's a good thread. Like every new person that I meet in the space, like one of the first things, like after a show or something like that, you meet them again, and you ask them kind of like how their show has been, and like just a common thread of how like giving people are and willing to talk and be as helpful as they can. And like honestly, that's like the start of our relationship, which brings me back to kind of like store local. I remember very vividly a meeting with you and Lance really early on, and like you guys were telling us just about the long tail in the industry, the single location operators, right? The core of why you started store local. I kind of touched on it. Like, I feel like there's a lot of change happening in the industry, and most industries consolidate over time because scale ultimately wins, right? And
Right.
The bet that store local kind of took, I think, was like, hey, maybe scale can be shared across people. I'm curious, like just some thoughts around that, and then like the kind of the question to really answer after you diatribe a little bit is like, do we feel like consolidation has gone too far in the space? Like, where are we at right now? Give us kind of your market dynamic around where the space is and how the small mom and pop still thrive tomorrow.
Yeah. So, when we first founded Store Local, it was a true cooperative. I mean, people literally bought shares in the business, and it was all, Three Musketeers, all for one for all, with the goal of either buying or building the resources that we all needed to use to run our self-storage facilities. And none of us had the budget. Even the largest private portfolio at that time didn't have the budget to compete with some of the technology that was being developed by the REITs, whether it was website or property management software or whatever the case may be. We have always viewed that long tail of the industry as an important piece of what makes this industry special. And it is those small, and we, call them mom and pops, but small operations that have gotten into this very unique business of renting space to other people. That is a very profitable and successful business when you do it well. And for a long time, you didn't even have to do it that well for it to be profitable and successful. It was, in some instances, in some markets, it was, if you build it, they will come. And if you could get it built, it would fill up and you had a very successful storage facility. Now, fast forward to today, it's gotten a little more competitive, especially in a lot of markets, and things have changed. But from a consolidation standpoint, we're not done yet. That is the nature of, our industry. When I look at hospitality, for example, that is an industry that I frequently look at to see out to the future of self-storage. And we trail hospitality by 10 or 15 years, kind of depending on what specific area you're looking at. But as the industry as a whole kind of is living the life of hospitality just 15 years behind hospitality. And so there was an absolute ton of consolidation in hospitality. They're pretty well consolidated now into a handful of brands and sub-brands, because you wouldn't open a new hotel today and call it Rodolfo's Hotel. It just wouldn't compete. You could have the nicest hotel out there. It would be very difficult for your nightly occupancy to remain high just getting people to find you online, because Marriott and Hilton and IHG and all of these big brands and their sub-brands are dominating the search space. And that, we've seen happening in our industry is something that will continue, I feel, to happen over the next 10 years. 10 years from now, there will still be many independent owners of self-storage facilities, but I don't think there will be nearly as many mom and pop signs on the building. And so that's why, at Store Local, we created Store Local Storage as a solution for that future problem, if you will, is that, okay, we still want you to own your storage facility and run your storage facility, but if you put your storage facility under the flag of Store Local Storage and you put Store Local Storage on the side of your building, you can be one of, right now, over 100 self-storage facilities flying the same flag online. And as that model continues to grow, I think we're probably early in that idea. But I think over the next 10 years, that's just going to continue to become the standard, where people aren't going to be opening Rodolfo's self-storage or Mason self-storage. They're going to have to pick a brand in order to be seen online so that they can rent units to fill that facility.
It becomes about the brand becomes attraction and brand trust, and just the level set of somebody walking through the door almost. And then, once you get in the door, you've got to win them still. I'm curious if there's advantages to that independent operator that are still what advantages do the independent operators still have today?
Well, the biggest advantage they have is flexibility or speed, I'll say. They can be nimble. They can react without having to run it up any flagpole. They can change their pricing. They can change their promotion strategy. They can change from customer to customer, depending on how involved they are with their business. They have the ability to be more nimble than anyone. And that is still the independent operator's biggest advantage. And as you add more facilities to that equation, that nimbleness gets to be less and less over time. And so what we're trying to build is the tools that allows operators to maintain that nimbleness across their entire portfolio, because that's what it's going to take moving forward.
I'm curious, with you guys have been building Store Local for the last couple of years, and I love the idea. At the end of the day, right, it's coming like a brand that people can trust anywhere, different states, where if I move or whatnot, I know Store Local. I can at least expect the same experience that I did, at my last location, right? So, but being a co-op, I'm curious, how do you guys think, as you guys keep growing, right? You guys have gotten bigger, more members have joined, making decisions and weighing. If I'm not mistaken, you said everyone still has, I guess, ownership in their own stores, or maybe is there a spread ownership in the co-op?
Everybody owns their their own portfolios. And one of the biggest things I've been a huge proponent of for all store local members is choice. One of the worst things you can tell an entrepreneur is no. And so we don't
Yeah,
try and make a habit
I
of
agree.
ever telling an entrepreneur no. And so from a store local membership standpoint, when I started, we had 112 member companies in store local. Today, we're over 500. These are all separate companies that run their portfolios how they want to run their portfolios. We provide them the tools, either again through buying group relationships or just stuff that store locals built, like our store local protection program. But they get to make the choice of what parts and pieces they want to use for their operation. Now, store local storage, that is a product of store local. It's an opportunity. It's not something that we require anybody to do, again, because I'm not putting people in a forced box. But if they do choose to use that product, in order for that product to work best for them, then yes, we do need them to change their name and change their sign on the side of the building so that Google doesn't get upset with them and penalize them for confusing the internet, as Google likes to. They are the arbiter of what is acceptable on the internet. And so they have their rules. And so we then say, all right, in order to play by the rules of Google and make this work the way we want it to work, really the main change that we require for being part of store local storage is that, you change your name. Store local storage is not a franchise model from the standpoint that we say, all right, here is the very strict set of rules that you must follow in order to successfully, make a hamburger. Using McDonald's as an example, but we are a marketing group, and it is, here are a list of best practices that we as a group have derived are on the best way to run a storage facility daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. But I also am not going to fire you the second you break one of my rules for making a hamburger. I do just need you to change your sign and use storelocal.com as your primary B2C website for generating rentals, because that's what we're ultimately trying to do. Everything in this industry comes down to renting units. And that's one thing that, I communicate to our teams at Store Local and Tenant and even my own facilities. It's all about renting units. That I frequently on my team calls with my managers at National Self Storage, I end the call with, now go rent some units. And I've done that for 20 years because at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do. And that everything else we do comes back around to focusing on renting units.
You should add that to your email signature. I like that.
I should, yes. I think I did at one point, but then the signatures changed. But yes, it's,
Nice.
I don't know, sometimes people think it's a little too hardcore, but that goes back to my Army stuff. But it's rent some units.
Hey,
Everybody's happy at the end of the day, no matter what service you provide. If it rents units,
showing you care. One
That's
last thing. One last thing before passing on to Mason, and like we can get into the tech angle basis of the podcast. But I've kind of leading to that. I've heard you like speak and whatnot, and you said that operators in general sometimes are too cheap. I'm just
we
curious,
have a reputation for that.
and so as we talk about investments and that could be technology, that could be other like processes, etc. Like what do you think what is your actual theory as to why operators are slow to invest? And in that same realm, like what kind of finding like breaks that habit of actually getting out there and making some moves?
So, like I said, we do have that reputation as an industry. And the reason I think we have a lot of that reputation in many cases is because people have been so successful without having to try too hard. It's, you build a facility in an excellent market, it leases up, it starts spinning off cash flow every month, and you're taking that cash flow to do other things with, right? People haven't set aside, as true real estate asset managers would, room for CapEx, TechX, OpEx improvements over the years. That's kind of been the sales pitch for people to get into self-storage. It's like, build it, fill it up, take your check every month and go on vacation. As we are kind of shifting into a more mature industry and things are getting more competitive out there, the successful operators are starting to understand that they do actually have to turn around and reinvest in their properties in order to keep those rentals coming. The great thing about self-storage is that we have a 30-day lease or a month-to-month lease. The trick that people don't understand about self-storage is that because of that lease, while it's great for us, it cuts both ways in that 5 to 10% of our people move out every month. And we then have to replace those every month in order to just maintain our occupancy and our revenue for a given month. And so if you're not thinking of how am I going to replace those 5 to 10% of my customers every month, over time, given a long enough horizon, you're going to start headed downhill. And so the successful operators are starting to understand that, yes, I have to invest in not only the CapEx of my facility with the easy stuff like, is my asphalt maintained? Are my units clean? What is my curb appeal? Is my landscape up? All of that traditional CapEx that you expect with real estate. But because we are that month to month industry, what technology am I deploying in order to catch and convert every single lead that I possibly can, that I've gone through all of this effort online to get this person to pick up the phone and call me or hit my website? How do I convert all of those so that I can not only cover my 5 to 10% loss that I'm going to have every month, but then grow the occupancy of the facility and make it perform even better? So it is still a push and pull. There are many people that are still in the camp of, I'll just take my check and go on vacation. But more and more, especially the operators that view this as a long-term play for them, or in many cases, a generational play for them, they understand that they're having to make that investment in what I call the modern customer experience. Now, I've been saying modern customer experience for 8 years, but going back to our first facility that I developed in 2018. But that modern customer experience is something that I've been focused on my whole career in the industry, to keep our stores up to par, at least with the customer experiences that our customers or our tenants have at any other business that they do business with. And so those that get that, I think moving forward will continue to be successful. We'll have our ups and downs as an industry, but in general, it's been a great industry, and we continue to thrive and will continue to thrive.
I love it. That opens the door so many questions to like dig into a little bit deeper. I want to take it 40,000 foot before we get to the surface level. Like, Travis, we've said this 1,000 times, you wear so many hats, you have so many problems coming across your desk, from should we, spend the CapEx at a specific location to repave things, to, what is Tenant and Hummingbird going to be building next? Like, what's the framework and tooling that you use on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-over-year to like prioritize and systemize what you should be spending your time and energy on, right? Because you can only focus on, even though you do 1,000 things, you've got amazing teams. Like, how does Travis figure out what problems he's going to go and attack that's going to make the most impact?
Well, I only say this to kind of piss Lance off. Lance Watkins is the CEO of Tenant Inc., and he was the CEO of Store Local before I became CEO of Store Local. But back in the original days of Store Local, and I say this because it's still true today, and Lance it upsets him. Cheap leads is the sarcastic way that we now explain what is still today the most important thing to self-storage operators. And still today, something that we are working to solve with SEO and now AEO and Google pay-per-click and Facebook and Meta and AI, LLMs, and all of the areas that, going pre my days to the yellow pages, all of the areas that operators found tenants is the most important thing and the most important time that we spend in anything that I'm doing. the challenge that we still have today, the REITs are better at it than the rest of us, but it comes down to, I know I have leads. I see that I'm generating leads. Attributing those leads to a specific channel, whether it be pay-per-click or SEO or my website or all the different channels we have, is still a very daunting task in our industry.
Google and
And
Facebook struggle at it still, right?
right. And so I've recently added another hat to my collection at Tenant, where I've stepped in to oversee the digital marketing team at Tenant. And working with that team, they're awesome. They are awesome SEO and PPC experts that generate leads for customers all day long. That's what they're there to do. The thing that I've brought to the conversation for them is my, I'll say, unique operator lens. And many times you will sign up with any SEO agency or website agency, and they will give you all of the cool charts and graphs from Google Analytics and Looker Studio and all. They build all this cool stuff, and they talk about impressions and impression share and this keyword and that keyword. And as a self-storage operator, my eyes just go cross, and that doesn't tell me what I'm after at the end of the day. And so I'm now working with the teams to speak the language of our customer. Like all of that cool GA4 stuff that they spend all day heads down in their computers working on, that's all just sausage making to me. Just tell me about the sausage, right? How many units did I rent and from where? And so I am now working coming from that angle with the team and the data team at Tenant to further our, cause, if you will, or our goal of that true attribution of every single lead. And it was true in 2013 when we started Store Local with cheap leads. It's still true today. We're still chasing that attribution from a technology standpoint that can ultimately very simply tell a self-storage operator what their return on ad spend is. And is it working? Is it not working? Telling me all of that mumbo jumbo from, about SEO is cool. I'm familiar with it, but a lot of those mom and pops just straight over their head, right? And it's not bringing the value to operators. And so whether it's not just tenant digital marketing, it's any kind of marketing, any kind of product that is designed to convert or rent units. If it can't simply be explained by how many units did you give me this month, we're not there yet. And
Yeah,
in
tell me how you
many
ring the cash
cases,
register.
yeah, in many cases around the industry, it's just, we know it. We can feel it as operators. Like, yeah, I know that's working. I know that people are coming from here and people are coming from there, or this thing is converting leads into rentals. We can feel it, but we can't prove it. And so I'm spending a lot of time on the proving it side of things right now. The data is there. We just have to, plug some more things together, connect some more dots. And I think we will get there to a simple answer of, what is my return on ad spend? What multiple of every dollar am I spending am I getting back in rent with, based on the lifetime value of my customer at that facility? I don't want to be using benchmarks that are, as an industry, the lifetime value of a customer is $2,000. Well, that's great. I look at facilities that have a lifetime value of a customer of $429. That math changes things
Pretty
significantly.
drastically.
And so we've got to be able to get down to the actual picture at the actual facility and what that means for each location rolled up into a portfolio, rolled up into, the entire ownership group, all
Yeah,
of those.
it's important not only for you and the team, but also like the co-op members and all that. It's like they're
That's ultimately what it's
Yeah.
for. But until we can explain it in their language,
Yeah.
it's a challenge.
So there's even just talk about SEO and even the now adding AI search into that too. It's like adding another layer of things that obviously your team needs to keep up to and pretty frequently on the changes that are happening, but also now having to take that and educate the co-op members, right? Or the different owners, et cetera, right? You're doing it. We do that on our end.
Sure.
and like one of those things is like AI is everywhere right now, right? You will not find right now a vendor that does not pitch AI in their platform, one part or the other. It could be at the beginning of their tagline, or it could be at the end of the tagline,
Yeah.
whatever that is. And so I'm curious, like shoot, you said what 2009 you're doing remote, right? Or you're
Yeah.
remotely working, right? But
Right.
I know you guys have been really strong around like running remote operations or automating your operations. Going back to what you're saying about your the customer experience. And so I'm curious, like how do you guys, even from both hats as an operator and then also working for a technology company, how do y'all evaluate AI tools that you're actually going to use in your portfolio? It's not like the marketing website or the marketing messaging. It's like it's actually like how are you deciding what works, what doesn't, et cetera?
Well, I've got a lot of thoughts on this, as you
I'm
can
sure. I'm
as you
sure.
can imagine, and there's a lot of different ways that we can go with it. So, from the operator standpoint, you know, the automations that we did with Noki at our first automated facility in 2018, that was focused on the modern customer experience and being able to use your phone to access your facility, just like you could use your phone to check out at the grocery store or use your phone at the bank to go to the ATM. What that taught me, though, was that technology is a multiplier. Like it is not a magic wand. And there is a lot of magic wand discussion being had out there. We used the technology to create an experience that was better than the customer experience at our competitors down the road that still had the lock and key and they couldn't make their payment on their phone. And you know, we use that to not only improve the customer experience, but what I say about multiplier is we use to free up the manager's time to do other things that we find to be more important than going and checking locks on units 2 or 3 times a day. I want my managers renting units. I want salespeople in the office. I want people answering the phone when somebody calls that converts that lead back to a rental. Same story we were talking about before. And so operationally, using AI, using a tool like what you guys have built to be able to quickly respond to leads, to talk to customers, answer their questions, whether it be a chat bot or whether it be voice, is critical to our conversion process. If you get back to people promptly, they will probably rent with you. If they've gone through all of the process of getting a hold of you, that means they want to talk to you. And if you're not able to answer that phone or return that phone call or return that email or that text message, if you're not able to do it quickly, they can very quickly move on to the next facility. And so that's the multiplier piece of AI for me. AI can answer, you're the experts, but it can do that 100 times at once if you had 100 people calling to rent a facility or rent a unit at your facility at the same time. AI can handle that. One human cannot. And so that's one example of it. From the other side, and just kind of my own personal take on all of the LLMs that are out there and the AIs that are out there, I look at them as like golf clubs. They are tools and they each have strengths and weaknesses that they are better at. And so, using the golf club analogy, I've got my driver and I've got my 9-iron. I don't use them to hit the same shot. Same with my 9-iron and my 60-degree wedge. They do different things too. And so I use Grok. I think Grok's hilarious. And I
I
like
could
the
see that. You
conversations
know
that
what? That's awesome. We should do a
I,
little segment where we kind of decide which one do you use to see if it matches
yeah.
personality.
Well, I think that would be a very interesting segment.
That's funny.
I think you'd probably get good at it. I started with ChatGPT and then switched to Grok and then but I pay for friggin' all of them. And because they are better or worse at certain things. So, for example, I use Claude today to create a little return on ad spend calculator, actually, what we were just talking about. I was using it for a tenant customer. And Claude is very good at making some pretty cool Excel spreadsheets. Grok, it has the best intentions, but that's not his wheelhouse. And it's the same with all of these LLMs. They still all hallucinate like crazy and go off on their own little tangents. But I see how they can be trained and educated, and a lot of because I learned from talking to you guys early on and came to understand how you guys trained your bot. Gave me at least some kind of understanding about how a lot of this stuff works. But they're all different tools for different things. And so if I want pretty pictures, I'll use Grok. If I want spreadsheets, I'll use Claude. I don't use ChatGPT as much anymore, but I even attempted, again, just out of my own curiosity, few months ago when the OpenClaw craze came out. I had an old MacBook Pro that I dedicated to try and set up this OpenClaw agent that was going to help me, book travel or whatever I had envisioned him doing. Again, he knew exactly what he was supposed to be doing. He couldn't open a window to save his life. And so that automatically became over my head and too much, that not my wheelhouse. Wasn't what was promised in all of the conversations on the socials. But all of those things, we had a speaker at our innovation summit in February, the Store Local Innovation Summit on AI. And she came up and said, and this is something I've stolen from her, AI today is as bad as it's ever going to be. And as bad as it is today, it's still pretty cool. And you can see the things that it's going to be able to do over time as it learns to hallucinate less and learns, Grok learns how to make spreadsheets. It's going to happen. Claude's going to get better at pictures. It's going to happen. And all of these things continue to evolve. I'm of the fortunate generation that has lived pre and post internet and was old enough to notice the difference between when we had internet and when we didn't. So I'm seeing the similarities in this AI evolution of a pre and post AI world being very similar to my life pre and post internet. And so I feel very fortunate that I'm of the age to have been able to experience both of those things. But they're, at the end of the day, they're all tools. They're not magic wands. They're not just going to pick up and, I see on social media, I built an agent that, goes on Polymarket and it makes me $20,000 a day trading weather patterns, blah, blah, blah. Sure did. But there's a little truth in there. And over time, it will help you, maybe Polymarket's not the best example, but it will help you make money more efficiently and multiply the power of one human being across, multiple communication.
Totally. I love preaching that they're a tool. It's a tool set. There's so many interesting diatribes that I'm not going to go down at this point. But like the thing that I'll say is like, I think it's true pre-internet, post-internet, the advent of any technology, fundamentals most of the time don't change, right? And so like the way that we build business, the way that we build interactions and experiences for consumers, those fundamentals don't change. The tools that we utilize to execute across those fundamentals do change, right?
Absolutely.
And so like, in my career, the tools that we've built or had in order to create experiences have changed, but the fundamentals of how to make those experiences better, how to have a controlled feedback loop that continually learns and gets more productive, et cetera, those fundamentals haven't changed. And then I'm going to hard pivot because I know that we're like coming up to a time where we're getting close to, Travis needing to wear another hat at some point in time. And so, I know one of the things that most recently, Travis, you've been passionate about every time that I talk to you is the reintroduction of that, the rebranding, obviously the introduction of the show, what you've got on your chest today. I'm curious why. Why is this something that Travis Morrow is doing? Why are you bringing it back? Why is this an important piece of the puzzle to all the different things that you've got your hands in?
Well, I can't take all the credit for the MSM piece. It was Lance and myself, but the original idea.
We took a shot at Lance earlier, and now we're giving him a kudos. So
yes, exactly. So we're balanced back out.
Don't worry, Lance. We'll tag you. We'll tag you on social.
MSM was the oldest publication in the self-storage industry. It was 42 43 years old when we bought it. And ever since it was created, it was owned by Minico, and Minico throughout the course of their existence, they're an insurance company, and they got bought by bigger insurance companies a couple times, and every time MSM got to kind of go along for the ride, but it certainly wasn't a priority for these larger insurance companies. And so we saw an opportunity to work with Minico to have Store Local acquire MSM so that we could continue its mission of education for the independent operator in the industry. The other publications in the industry have kind of different goals is not correct, but they answer to different audiences. So one of them is a for-profit business that is 100% there to make money off the self-storage industry. They don't own any self-storage facilities. They are part of the industry from that. They do an event for the industry, and they have a magazine for the industry. The other one is an association-based one that has members across all sizes of the industry, I will say, including their vendors. And when you're an operation like that, sometimes you don't get to cover all of the stories that are out there in the industry. And then there was MSM, and it was a natural fit for us as independent owner operators ourselves with Store Local to acquire the independent owner operator voice of the industry. And so I didn't want to see it just go away and just kind of drift off being owned by a company that couldn't give it any attention. And so that's really what prompted us to take a run at the acquisition of it. And so with that acquisition, it was Mini Storage Messenger. It was a little antiquated from a branding standpoint for our modern industry. And so MSM Modern Storage Media was born from that. And then the funny thing was, ever since we bought it, the question I got asked most was, when are you guys going to do a show? And initially my response was, well, hey, let me get my arms around the publishing industry. This is a new hat for me, if you will, to keep with the theme of the show. But as time went along and we got through the rebranding and the new digital version and some of the things that we were doing, the opportunity came that we looked at the landscape of the national shows in the industry and said, all right, well, the West Coast, if you will, Vegas being the West Coast, gets 2 national shows a year, and the East Coast gets a spring show that kind of moves around the East Coast, sometimes Texas, but is this moving target. And that only happens in the spring. So that left the fall for an East Coast specific event. And we chose Atlanta because, right now as we're speaking, Atlanta's setting up for FIFA and the World Cup. But in addition to the World Cup and national championship football games, SEC championship football games, they've got the Falcons, they've got, all of these big draw type events. If it can work for those, it can certainly work for us. And so Atlanta checks a lot of the boxes from an accessibility standpoint. Just like Vegas does, there's a direct flight to Atlanta from everywhere almost. And so we thought Atlanta was a natural selection. We found our space at the Georgia World Congress Center, which is the huge event space that FIFA is using right now. They're in the same building that we're going to be in. It was funny. I turned on my TV during football season. College game day was in our building that we're going to be in. I turned it on. It was at my son's volleyball game. And I'm like, wait, I recognize that building. And I asked our representative of the Georgia World Congress Center, I was like, are they in building C right now? And they're like, yes, they are. I'm like, that's what I thought. So we've got big boy professional event space and a
awesome.
brand new hotel connected right to the building that we think will be able to provide a modern experience to our self-storage operator attendees. And so, we just released our schedule last week. We've got over 60 hours of self-storage content, plus 6 keynote speakers, plus 50 roundtables, plus the party at the Georgia Aquarium Night 1, plus the MSM Awards Gala on Thursday night. We've packed in just a crap load for podcast purposes of content into this event designed to lift the experience for all of the attendees. We looked at, okay, what does the operator attendee look like? Or what is that experience? What has it look like for them? What can it be? Yes, it's a lot of self-storage content. And yes, there are only so many speakers in this industry. But what do we have those speakers talking about? Is it new? Is it topical? Is it stuff you haven't heard before? The answer is going to be yes, because that's where we're guiding them to go with the content that they're creating. We also look, though, at the exhibitor experience. Exhibitors in our industry historically aren't treated the best, or I'll say treated as customers frequently. And so we've looked at, what does their experience look like? How can we find those pain points that we know to exist because we're exhibitors too? How can we address those early on and make their experience better? And so there's so much from a content and trade show floor and all of these pieces that we're putting together. It's difficult to cover it all because there is so much, but I kind of simplify it down to, we are trying to, just like at my storage facilities, increase the modern customer experience of a national conference and trade show in our industry.
That's awesome. Me and Rodolfo both have gone to events that you and your team have put on, and I can say without a doubt that it will be something that you thoroughly enjoy every moment of. And I know this is on a much bigger stage. I've spent a lot of time at the Georgia World Congress Center throughout my college and pre-college years for different events and stuff like that. And you guys are going to have an awesome spot. I'm excited to hear it. Go on, Travis.
And the industry needs it too. So I'm really excited to see that. And it sounds like an awesome show. I've looked at the agenda already. You guys have a awesome line of speakers. I know you guys are still filling out some slots too, but really exciting stuff.
Well, one of the things that we did, and it was very much intentional, is we're still 5 months from the event. If I came out with a full schedule from beginning to end, 5 months out, I'm not doing a service to the industry. I intentionally left holes in our pillar content that we could fill in with the most relevant, topical, current event type content leading up to the show that we possibly can. And so we got to get, we've secured 75 speakers, I think the number is right now, because, we got to get people saving that time on their calendar. But right now we've just secured the lineup, and we're just now beginning to really start to work with the speakers on what is the most interesting thing we could talk about come November. And in some cases, we don't know yet what that's going to be. And so again, we're trying to make the content fresh and different from what they've heard at other events. And so it for me, I'm putting myself out there on this one. That doing a national show is a big deal, and it's a huge, huge lift. I don't want to go to a crappy show, so I'm going to make an awesome show. And that's really, your listeners can believe me or not, but that's what I'm doing here. Is I'm trying to make something that is valuable from all sides for everyone, based on what I've been doing in this industry for 20 plus years, wearing all the different hats.
I love it. We know.
Now, I will say, Mason, we did say we were gonna talk baseball, and just for you, I've got Chipper Jones.
I know. Trust me, this is the transition. We go into the rapid fire. We'll hit you with some self-storage things. We'll hit you with some personal things. So we'll get some baseball and hiking in it here at the end. I promise. I'll kick us off, and then a pass to Rodolfo for a couple, and then I'll close us out with those. I know Travis is a lover. I normally ask people their coffee order, but I know you're a lover of Red Bull. So the first rapid fire is like favorite Red Bull flavor.
So I was a huge Red Bull fan, and it was sugar-free Red Bull all the way.
Yeah.
But in the past 6 months, I've had 0 sugar-free Red Bulls.
Whoa.
I quit it cold turkey. I can't verify it scientifically, but that's probably not good to be drinking as many Red Bulls as I did every day. I just had the feeling that, probably not something that I should keep doing. I switched to Celsius. I don't drink nearly as much Celsius as I did the Red Bulls, and I'm probably going to give that up too. But it was always sugar-free Red Bull, because if it was the light version.
Do you have
Nice.
a go-to Celsius flavor? I mean, both Rodolfo and I we'll drink a Celsius on a trade show day for sure.
So I like the fizz-free blueberry lemon combo.
Wow,
I don't know
gonna
if
go search
I've
that one
had that
out.
one.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's some ridiculous flavors though. Yeah, they're good. They're good. I like the classic orange. I don't know.
yeah,
Very
nothing
generic.
wrong with it.
You know.
Are you more productive in the morning or at night normally?
100% the morning.
Morning.
It to the point that I knew myself so well that I would, back when I was in my heavy CrossFit days, I actually would do CrossFit at 3:00 because come
That's
3:00,
wild.
I'm
3
not.
a.m.
No, 3 p.m.
3 p.m. Okay.
So I would
I'm
work.
just going to
I would get up.
bed.
I start work at like 6:30,
Yeah.
and come 3:00, I'm kind of dying a little bit, and so that's when I would go work out, and then I come back from the gym and work more with a little more energy. But yeah, I'm 100% a morning person, and always really have been.
Nice. Phoenix or Atlanta?
Well, definitely between those two, it's Atlanta because I live in Tucson.
Okay.
But
Fair enough. Why
you
did I
know,
think you were connected to Phoenix? So, all
I
right,
mean,
I'll switch my question.
all right. So Tucson or Atlanta?
Yeah.
They both have serious pros to them. I actually, when I was in the Army, I was stationed in Savannah, Georgia. So it's 4 hours from here, but it's still Georgia. And, loved my time for the couple of years that I was in Georgia. And so I like coming to the green of Atlanta and visiting the humidity. I also like leaving the humidity and going back to the dry desert landscape.
Best of both worlds.
And so there are definite pluses and minuses that I love about both places. And so it's too difficult to choose between the two. That's why, thanks to Delta for their direct flight between Tucson and Atlanta, it's easy for me to bounce back and forth.
I love it. Georgia boy here, so I'll transition to some more Georgia stuff. But people don't know Atlanta is the city that's built in like literally a rainforest, right? Like that area of the country there's only two rainforests in North America. One of them is Atlanta, basically, in the Appalachian foothills, and then the Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
So to last Atlanta comment, I'm curious if you have a favorite Braves moment.
Well, it can go back as far as the Sid Bream slide.
Nice.
If I want to go really far back with it, I think, we were at the National League Championship Series. We were at the game before they went to the World Series in
21.
21. That was, just a wild time. I would say I'm a pretty big Acuna fan, and just some of the
Ronald.
plays that he makes in the outfield. Like I think some of the most impressive things about him is his arm, and some of the
Ridiculous.
throws that I've seen him make from the outfield to home are just wild. Like, shouldn't even be humanly possible.
Totally.
My wife is the much bigger Braves fan than I am. And so she's also very excited about Chipper coming to the show, as am I. But she's very excited about that, we'll say.
That's awesome. Chipper's wife is a former Kentucky cheerleader, so I know his wife actually better than I know Chipper, but I've met his wife a number of times, etc. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. What pair of hiking boots are you wearing this summer? Right, we're getting close to hiking season. I know you guys are avid hikers. What you putting on your feet this year?
So my favorite pair, and they're not young boots anymore, but that's what makes them awesome. And this will sound weird, but they're actually Nike combat boots.
Nice.
They are desert tan Nike combat boots that I've had for years, and they're super lightweight, but they have, they go up above the ankle, and they're just kind of my go-to anytime I'm out. I keep those in Arizona, so they're kind of my desert boots, but those are by far my favorite. And I actually went hiking weekend before last and wore them and had the thought to myself, I need to start finding more of these before they are no longer
They're gone.
available.
Yeah. I just replaced boots, so this year it's the same brand. I'm pretty loyal to my Loas, but I just got a new pair. I've put way too many miles on the other pair, so it was time to to strap some new ones up. So I'm excited to break those in this year.
Nice. Well,
I have one more.
Yeah, go for it.
Kind of just take it back to storage real quick, but what's one thing you wish the REITs would stop doing?
Rodolfo's trying to get me in trouble.
The hard hitter at
Actually,
the very end here.
It's not in
An
trouble.
hour of warming Travis up for this answer.
Yeah. It's not even getting in trouble because they're giving us a bad rap.
Yeah, it's wreaking havoc.
And actually, that's what I'm going to be talking about at the show. And Rodolfo, you didn't even know you gave me. You didn't even know you gave me the perfect segue. So I am speaking on the last keynote on Friday. I have the worst slot, so nobody can say that they got a worse slot than I did. But people are going to want to stick around for it because I'm going to be talking about the reputation of our industry. And some of it's things we can control and some of it's things we can't control. But I think it will be a very interesting 45-minute session that I'm planning to talk about. But I would say my answer to your question is if they could just be a little more transparent with their customers about their pricing practices, it would be good for the whole industry.
Last thing is, Travis, anything else that you want to share? Where can people find you, learn more about what you have going on?
Yeah, so if you're listening to this, you can go to msmtheshow.com to find out all of the information about the show. Like I said earlier, the schedule is up there now. For your listeners, if they go to the registration page, there's a box for affiliate code. If they enter Swivl26, they can actually save $100 on the registration cost. So I come bearing gifts to the podcast today.
Nice.
But last thing I'll say about it is you're gonna want to come to a first year show for the new experience. There's not a time of doing an event where you put more into the event than the first year. And so this is definitely going to be one that you don't want to miss.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis, so much. It was awesome having you. Again, we'll do it again soon, and I'm sure we will see you out on the show floor.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Travis. Appreciate you, man.